give folks 30 more seconds to join in, and then we'll get started. Okay, we are about 30 seconds past the top of the hour. So again, welcome everyone. We have a great webinar for you today and a great group of presenters. Just a few housekeeping notes to start off with. We are recording today's webinar and we'll be sending a follow-up email to all of you with a link to the recording and slides. But when we shift to the panel discussion, please feel free to customize your screen by clicking and dragging on the slides and media player to adjust the sizes. And if there is time at the end, we will have a question and answer period. So please feel free to use the Q&A function located in your toolbar and type in your questions at any time, and we'll get to them at the end. Again, we have a great webinar for you. And to start, I'd like to send it over to Sally Lyons-Wyatt for the introduction. Sally, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Joe. Really appreciate it. And welcome, everyone. This is our second webinar for 2023 U.S. CPG Growth Leaders, and we are thrilled to be here. I'm joined by Carol Lois, who's one of my partners. I am a global EVP and Chief Advisor for Circana's CPG and food service system. So with that, what we have done this year, which is our 12th annual year, we have been able to look across to see where growth is coming from, which companies have really led that growth. And we've done so by looking at top 1 billion and above, and then 1 billion and below. If you joined us on Tuesday, you will have met 3 of the companies that were growth leaders in the 1 billion and above. Today, we are excited to now focus on companies that are growth leaders in 1 billion and below. And knowing that we are going to be focusing on that, we are going to spend a little bit of time to at least set up how did we get to these rankings and what was the methodology. But in addition, we will be putting out a report around the second week of April that will not only bring to you the highlights from the webinars from Tuesday and today, but additional insights around the companies that were leaders, what some of the tactics that they took, examples of the themes that we're going to share with you. So this is going to be an ongoing dialogue that we look forward to having with you, not only today, but in the future. The last thing as far as housekeeping, as we go through this, if you have questions, please put them into the Q&A, and we will be addressing those towards the end of the webinar. With that, Carol, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Sally. As Sally mentioned, I'm going to give some additional context on the report before we get into the great discussion that we have for you today. So this is our 12th annual year for CPG Growth Leaders, in which we are measuring the total U.S. CPG performance across more than 600 CPG companies. We compare companies to their peer set in relative similar size, and then are looking at the drivers of growth behind that. And that leads to the productive discussion that we will have today and in the report in April, as Sally mentioned. So a quick look on the measures that we use and the analysis that's behind this report. As Sally mentioned, we've got kind of 2 separate groups of larger and smaller CPGs that we're comparing against each other. Even within that, we are then breaking that into groups of similarly sized companies to compare against those with similar number of brands and sales in the market. So those groupings are 8 billion and above, 2.5 to 8 billion, 1 to 2.5 billion. And then from a smaller perspective, using 100 million as the minimum of annual retail sales, comparing companies from the 100 to 500 size grouping, and then 500 million to 1 billion. The 4 measures we use to track the retail performance and rank company performance is dollar and volume, sales and share performance. So we're looking both at the ability to drive organic sales growth, and the ability to win within our company's respective markets. And then finally, it comes the fun part of looking at what's driving the leading companies in CPG this last year. And we're looking across a breadth of factors, including consumer, branding, pricing, media, promotion, getting down to the what distinguishes the leading companies in the current environment. A quick talk about what's happened in the industry and the context for this year. So we're looking at here the CPG growth across the past couple of years in both dollars in purple and volume sales in pink. So where we are in 2023 is still a little bit of a different year like we've seen since 2020. If you think about it, 2019 is more indicative of a normal year in CPG when we expect about 2 to 3 points of price growth and about 0.5 point of volume, which you can imagine is basically the population growth rate. So where we are this year in 2023 netted out at 4.2%. From a volume perspective, you can see it declined in 2023. And that's a continued unraveling of the excess volume that happened in 2020. It's starting to come back to normal as we hit near the end of the year, getting to the point where volumes are starting to flatten and grow positive after all that unraveling has happened. From a price perspective, collectively, after the higher than average price growth for the past couple of years, we're about 30% higher in CPG prices, which is now being felt across the market, of course. And when we come to this year, we're nearing the end of that. So the year started at about 10% price growth across CPG in the beginning of the year, and by the end of the year, hitting down to about 2-3%. And again, that's as we switch into 2024, it's the kind of volume growing with limited price growth after we've had so much increase in the market. So that leads to the big trends driving the market right now are obviously trading down. Now remember that within CPG is sometimes a trade down from something outside of CPG. So we still have that kind of premium trend and demand, but a trade down from more expensive experiences. And then within CPG as well, from higher experiences to lower price brands. Also, value channels and general value behavior being a larger share of the market in the last year. Now, as we broke down what distinguished the leading companies versus other company performance, we're looking at here the drivers of growth between price, distribution, and unit velocity across the different size groupings that we talked about. And the first line is the leading companies, and the second is all other companies, showing the averages across the number of companies that are included. So you can see what's interesting, that price being everywhere in the market was not a distinguishing factor in driving growth. With similar price growth, especially among the largest companies for both the leading companies and the other companies. The differentiator, meanwhile, is distribution and or velocity. And when you're speaking of the smaller companies, is the ability to drive across all, and in some cases also be able to drive more price than the rest of the market. Now, collectively, over the past couple of years, as we've tracked the ability to perform based on how big CPGs are, the consistent story has been that smaller CPGs have been taking more and more share. I mean, you can see that in this chart, which is a distribution of the sales across company sizes and private label in the last year. And the middle bar, red and white bar there, is the change that's happened in total in dollar share from 2019. So this is, reflective of the pandemic as well, of course, where you see that the share of larger companies went down, more, generally more supply constraints and such, and that was filled in by the micro size companies. So we definitely saw outsized growth in that kind of 500 million and below in CPG. Now, 2023, starting to normalize from a supply perspective, we again see the share strength in the largest size companies come up again, managing those economies of scale And we see slowing growth contribution from the micro-sized companies, and really that niche of the 500 million and above being kind of the point where companies are exceeding, having proven velocity and continuing to expand a wide path on distribution. With that, I'll pass back to Sally to talk through our rankings.
Yeah, so thanks, Kara. So as you can see, there were some differentiators, but now we're going to unveil the top growth leaders for 2023. This page shares with you the top growth leaders for 8 billion and above, with Constellation leading that list. 2.5 to 8 billion with CJ Foods at the top of the list, and 1 to 2.5 billion with Celsius at the top of the list. And as I mentioned, if you missed the Tuesday webinar, you can catch the replay on our Circana.com. Then unveiling our less than 1 billion, topping the list at 500 to 1 billion is Prime. But as you can see, as you look through that list, Idahoan is number 2, and they have been on this list for every single year that we have done it, which is no easy feat. So we're thrilled to have Ryan with us to kind of talk about what they've done. And then for 100 to 500,000, Feastables at the top, but real excited the fact that we have with us someone from Beatbox, Justin Finchel, and he's going to be able to take us through, as he was one of the co-founders, how indeed they have been able to pull off this amazing growth. You'll see that on the previous pages, we just had 5 for each of the groupings, and we had 10 here. Part of that is growth was not easy in 23. It's still not easy for that matter. And it takes different tactics. It takes different strategies depending on the life cycle of your brand, the life cycle of your product portfolio, going through and figuring out where your opportunities exist. Size matters when it comes to all the different ways in which you can go about trying to get in front of a consumer. So we are thrilled and totally excited about the themes that came out of each of the different companies that we looked at across all the 2 pages that I share with you. First of all, I talked about consumer. What we're going to add to this when the report comes out is kind of the consumer foundation. Everyone talked about the consumer focus that they have. They talked about it in different nomenclature, but at the end of the day, it was all about the consumer. So that is a foundation against everything that I'm going to tell you. The first theme is integrated engagement. And this is not just good old fashioned my media connected to my in-store. It was a really above and beyond that, where it was working in concert with the consumer to be able to communicate and amplify the messaging of products, whether it was targeted or broad, through social, through influencers. You'll hear about ambassadors and even events. The integrated engagement is one where we've seen some tremendous uptick across any size client. So I think when you listen to different CPGs and you listen to the ones that are winning, you're going to find that this is part and parcel to their success. Continued newness. Yes, it's about innovation, but it's really ongoing innovation, ways in which to refresh the shelf, be able to keep the brand in front of the consumer with new attributes, fun, proactivity, really making engagement, that connection to engagement and that continued newness kind of important, but also balancing larger innovation with smaller innovation. We saw that coming through as well. Premium and value bifurcation. Whenever we talk to executives, we always say we're talking out of both sides of our mouth, because in one instance, we're talking about the fact that consumers are looking for value, and that value means different things to different people. And then on the other side, we're saying, oh, but by the way, they're willing to invest, especially if it's an affordable luxury or if they're having an out-of-home experience in the home. And we saw that coming through with the growth leaders. So we found many of these companies driving premium opportunity off the clear benefits that they're delivering to consumers, but also finding ways to adding value, whatever that might look like from an affordability standpoint. Could be packaging, it could be different products in the portfolio, but we saw that. And then the last one is embedding AI for operational prowess. Now, when you're a smaller company, it's a little harder to leverage AI quite yet. It's still so new. In fact, that's what we heard on Tuesday, is it's really new. But what we did hear from the big guys on Tuesday is that they are using it, and they're using it across trying to influence and find savings through supply cost and managing that, their forecasting, their inventory. But part of what we started to see popping is more around marketing effectiveness, where they were using AI for advertising and being able to find different messages to different targets depending on who they are. I think you're going to see that AI is going to continue to unfold. We'll hear from both Ryan and Justin if they've embraced or if it's on their future list and what they're thinking the role will play. And then again, if you want to go back and revisit the Tuesday webinar, there were some other additional notes from those clients as well. The themes, as you kind of double click in, not necessarily new, but what's fun about this is just the multiple themes. And that just points towards there's no magic bullet of winning the consumer's attention right now. There's the multiple benefits, convenience. So again, being able to have energy or performance or just well-being. How am I managing the emotional and physical and well-being of the customers that I'm trying to attract? Convenience and packaging, fun and indulgence. You can see ethnic, taste, protein, simple ingredients. So all of these, not necessarily new, but at the same time, the way in which the top growth leaders are going about it is important. And I would say out of the 4 themes, remember I kind of added consumer under there. When you think about the 4 plus consumer, I would tell you that none of these companies are only doing one. Most of them are doing 1 plus, and many were doing all. So I think that's one of the key differentiators from being able to just get good growth to getting great growth. So with that, I am absolutely honored to introduce 2 of our panelists that are here with us today. Ryan Ellis, who is Vice President, Retail Marketing and Business Development at Idahoan, and Justin Fenchel, who is co-founder, Chief Executive Officer of Beatbox Beverages. So welcome to you both. We are thrilled to have you and just absolutely excited about getting into this conversation, which I am going to start with probably the biggest question, which is around what were your key challenges? We obviously know you were successful, so congratulations on being a growth leader, but what were the challenges to that success and what were the drivers of your success? And Ryan, I'm going to start with you since Idahoan's been on here 12 years. That's not easy at all. So what do you see as some of those challenges and drivers of your success?
Yeah, thank you, Sally, and it's great to be with everyone this afternoon. We have been fortunate. We've been on this list, this leaders list, for each of the 12 years that the report has been published. And you know, when you start with a food that 90% plus of America loves, you've got a good head start. Potatoes, and especially when you can take a food that everybody loves and make it really easy to enjoy quickly. You've got a good tailwind. But you know, over the course of the last decade plus, we've been on a demand creation agenda, and like a lot of companies across industries, over the last 2 or 3 years, we were really forced to focus a little more often on the supply side of the equation, and for all of the right reasons. We had to rebuild customer confidence through high service levels. We had to make sure that we remained in stock on customer and consumer favorites within our lineup. And so that was really important for us. And we invested there. We spent a lot of time there. And I think that was the shoring up of the foundation coming out of those pandemic years, if you will, that were hard, but set us up for success in 2023 and hopefully beyond. Anytime you're forced to look at your cost drivers and make the hard decision of changing your price or taking a price increase, that's never to be taken lightly. And that's hard for us. We're inherently a good value. And we've got the brand has a 35% household penetration. So a lot of families across this country and individuals really rely on us for mealtime and otherwise. And so, we feel a sense of stewardship, not only with our customer partners, but also with the consumers. When you're in a time when you've got to take multiple price increases, boy, there were some sleepless nights in there. And that's tough, trying to keep people employed, plants running with the uncertainty of the elasticity that could come from multiple price increases. That was a challenge. And I think fortunately, because we're very planful about stabilizing our supply and keeping our confidence high with our consumer or our customer partners, we were able to emerge in a pretty good spot where volume was able to hold a lot better than anticipated and allowed us to really get back to a demand creation agenda, which we would much prefer and we've become quite good at.
I do have a follow-up to that, because you talked about the multiple price increases and the sleepless nights and what that meant to your consumers. But they were also trying to make ends meet, right? And I think Idahoan helped them in that journey. But was there one thing that you did last year from that demand creation that you talked about that you feel like really did help, to complement the fact that you had to do the heavy price increase? But were there some things that you did last year that you feel like helped fuel your success?
Yeah, great question, Sally. For us, it's about making sure our brand is really easy to participate with, making it easy to buy. And that meant a continued investment in distribution. Regardless of where you shop, whether it's from a screen or in a store, we want to be there. And we want to be there with products that suit your circumstances and the jobs that you'd hire them for. Even if there's been some changes in your situation or the family circumstances, that also means that we've had to innovate and have innovation that was distinctive so that we could reach out to and attract audiences of all kinds. Right? Our product is not one that's just for dinner time for middle income, middle-aged families. Potatoes are well loved across age groups and across the country. And like you would do at home, I wish you could see it. We buy 1 billion pounds of potatoes a year from the local growers, and we wash, peel, boil, and mash them and make them really easy to prepare at home and in all kinds of forms and flavors. So really investing in distribution and investing and even doubling down with new distinctive innovation.
Love that. Thank you very much. Now, totally switching gears and going to, as Justin has told me, he's like, it took us 12 years to get here, but so it was not an overnight success, so to speak. But I will say this, Justin, there has been so many multi-benefit alcoholic, non-alcoholic beverages that have been coming into the marketplace for the last probably 18 to 24 months. And you guys broke through. And I feel that there is a story there. So as we talk about the challenges that you had in 23, but yet the drivers of your success, I'd be thrilled for you to share that with the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, this is our first year on this list. We're very grateful to be here. Our goal, we would love to be here 12 years from now as well. So Ryan, congrats. And thanks for having us and letting us share our story. Yeah, it is the classic, 10 plus year overnight success story. For those that have known us for a long time, the packaging was very different back in the 2012, 2013, 2014. But I would say, we made the switch to our single serve Tetra Pak in 2017, and we aligned with the beer distribution network. And not speaking for all of CPG, but certainly beverage alcohol, it's got its own. It's challenging across the board as a small brand in CPG, but certainly within alcohol, there's a lot of nuances and your route to market that has to be through a distributor and what channels do they service. And so when we switched to the beer distribution networks in 2018 with our single serve, that's when things started to really take off, and they've certainly accelerated in the last couple of years. And I would say some of the challenges we've faced, the most obvious one that I think everybody's facing across CPG is, cost pressures and all of that. And we've kind of gone a different direction. We've been able to offset a lot of that through strategic sourcing, and our operations team has done a tremendous job to allow us to maintain our price point. So we feel we have a real sweet spot where we're at currently. We haven't taken a price increase in 6-7 years, and we've been able to manage through that. That said, we now are looking at it because we don't want to ever feel non-premium. We are a trade up to some of the traditional flavor malt beverages, and now that they've taken so many increases, we're finding ourselves needing to kind of keep almost that premiumization. So that's something we're looking at for this year. But I think the challenge for us is the world in beverage alcohol has shifted so dramatically in the last few years. It's not that RTDs, ready to drinks, or flavored malt beverages are new. They've been around a long, long time, and have been, look at Twisted Tea and Mike's Hard Lemonade. These brands have been growing every year for over 20 years. But I think COVID showed people you could get great quality, you could get great brands and a lot of convenience and great taste without having to buy a ton of different things to make your drink at home. But because the world has shifted, the way that we've built this brand kind of counterintuitively. We started in the independent channel and then finally got into some C-store chains, and now we're starting to really crack large format. But it's traditionally in the large format world is there's a beer buyer, a wine buyer, and a spirits buyer, and they're very separate. And up until a few years ago, it was separate. But now you're seeing this convergence of bases. I think seltzers were a great example. That was a beer base initially, but it wasn't a beer. It wasn't really necessarily a beer shopper. There was some crossover. And so now, we are a wine base. We do have a malt base for certain markets, but we're a wine base sold by beer distributors, but dealing with traditional wine buyers. And that part of the store that wine buyers typically control is going to be the warm wine section. And I always say, like, no one's shopping the warm wine aisle for Blue Raspberry Party Punch. And so that is a challenge, right? And you're seeing it switch now with this, quick rise of RTD, where big retailers are moving towards a ready to drink buyer, a ready to serve buyer. And that's happening. And when you look at the landscape from that lens, from, hey, where does it need to be in the store for where my customers are wanting to buy this product, and who are the companies that are set to drive, new consumers into my store and new categories that are coming up. We are like number 1, 2, or 3 by almost every metric. And so as that progresses, I think you're going to see us get a lot more distribution, and we are getting a lot more distribution. But that's been a roadblock that we've had to work through over the last couple of years as this category has really grown.
I do love that, because the complexity that you've had to navigate is different for some folks that don't compete in an alcoholic category, right? There is more complexity. Although what you are describing is something that all clients are experiencing, which is the blurring of categories. So no matter who's on this call, I think that is a common theme that we're seeing across the industry is that blurring, which is causing some disruption at retailers on, well, who's supposed to buy it? Where's it supposed to be? And then from a CPG standpoint, like, where are we supposed to be putting our efforts? So kudos to you guys for navigating that well.
Yeah, it's ongoing. And I mean, our rate of sale when you go from warm to cold goes up nearly 6 times. That's a lot of revenue for retailers that the ones that are doing that are realizing. Or when you go from only having 2 or 3 facings to 6, we see a 300% lift across the board. So that's what we're working towards as we're getting more SKUs per door and getting into the right parts of the store.
Cool.
Building on that, Justin, and moving to the next question, I want to flip it around a bit and talk about build on the customer relationships. So what trends do you see in the customers, the retailers you're working with? How are things changing as you worked over them over the years to get the product in the shelf?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we saw when we came up with this idea back in 2012 was we wanted something different than beer. We wanted more flavors. We wanted higher alc, convenience, something that tasted great and that spoke to us and was authentic and fun. And I think, to quote Wayne Gretzky, like, we skated to where the puck was going, probably a few years too early. But, now I think those consumer trends, at least as it relates to beverage alcohol, you're seeing that come through in spades. I mean, you have full flavor, high alc, convenience, and brand experience. And we've stayed true to that from day one. You have to win on taste. It's got to taste great. As Tito told us early on, the dog's got to like the dog food. And if they don't, they're not coming back. You're not getting repeat purchase. So taste great, more than ever, as Ryan alluded to, like price sensitive. What's the value I'm getting for how much I'm spending, whether that's $5, $10, $20, $30. What am I getting for that? And is it a perceived good value to me? So taste, price point, alcohol content, and then brand experience. People are generally surprised to learn that half of our shoppers are over 40. We certainly over-index in Gen Z and Millennial. We are in line with Gen X. We over-index in folks that identify as Hispanic, Latino, over-index in folks that identify Black, African American. So we built this product as if we were at a music festival, because that's what we loved. And if you've ever been to a music festival and there's 100,000 people there, no one's asking, they're having a great time. No one's asking who you voted for. No one cares what race you are, what sexual identity you are. Just people coming together and having a great time. And if the world could be more like that, we'd be in a better place. And that's been our authentic brand messaging, because it's true from the founders and the people we bring into this company. And we have an absolutely incredible team that's speaking this every day. You resonate with people and it speaks to them, and it doesn't matter what demographic or what age. Music connects us all. And if the product delivers on the key points of taste, price, alcohol content, and brand experience, you can win. Then it's just about getting shelf space. And I will say it took us, 10 years to figure out the right model of product, distribution network, marketing mix, team, operation, supply chain, funding, all of those things. And they all have to work in a small CPG brand or none of it will work. And now we've done that. We no longer are guessing what's the right distribution network, what's the right, product, what's the right marketing, what's our supply chain. It's merely, how can we get on more shelves? Because when we get on shelves, we become a top selling product there. But I think staying true to your authentic selves and what your brand is, because consumers are a lot smarter than I think a lot of people give them credit for, and they see through the BS that gets fed through their feeds wherever they are, and and then meeting them where they are, and making sure your marketing is authentic to where your consumers want to engage with you, and empowering different communities to become a part of the brand story. And we have so many different communities, from the Shark Tank community to music festival community. Even within that, there's different communities too. A Discord channel that we have 6,000 people in, super fans, and our crowdfunding WeFunder community. And there are so many different communities, and you have to meet people where they are in an authentic way, and you can drive success.
Curious, with the high distribution upside that you have, are there any priorities in terms of where you focus next to get the product to consumers, and also changing the way people are buying with food delivery and online that makes its way somewhat into the alcohol space? Is there anything that you're focused on for distribution to get products to consumers?
Yeah, I think there's, over the next 18, 24 months, large format is going to become a very large part of our story. As I said, we built it kind of the opposite. We built it at independence and convenience. And we need to lift, of the 93,000 doors that have bought in the last 90 days, nearly half of them have 3 or less flavors. So right there, it's like, how do we go from these 3 flavors to 6, where we see a 300% increase in sales, right? So there's that, which is just grinding it every day, working with our retail partners to get more. But we're finally now we have variety packs, which is a new kind of form factor for us. That was just 7% of our sales last year. That is going into the biggest retailers in the world in a massive way this summer, with some really cool packaging. And that is new for us. And if you look at some of the largest players in beverage alcohol, they have their products for the convenience channel. Like looking at Twisted Tea as an example, nearly 80% of their sales are in convenience are singles, but nearly 80% of their sales in large format are multi-packs. And so you have to have the right product for the right segment. And that is what we're very excited about, because I think people are going to be very, very surprised when they start seeing which our numbers are, gratefully already really, really strong, and the reports that you all send to us, which we love. But they're going to get even crazier once we get some of these large format retailers. So that's a big focus for us. As far as online, alcohol is very much, I want it now. It's not, there are wine clubs and things of that nature, but when you're sitting with your friends on your couch on a Friday night and you're like, hey, we want to get some beatbox for our pregame, like, you're not going to sign up for a wine club online for that. You want to hop down to your local store to pick it up. You want to hop on, and at this point, Uber Eats, or one of those other ones. And those are all still done through retailers. So the bigger retail presence you have, you find yourselves, I'm always excited because when I go into a different city and I hop onto the delivery thing and I see, I search Beatbox and it's there, that's great. And that happens by getting into more doors so that you become part. And we work a lot, our marketing team works a ton with the biggest retailers to, make sure that we are on all, have the latest and greatest of what they're looking at for delivery, direct to consumer. So it's an ongoing thing, but with alcohol, it's much more kind of on demand.
Great. And Ryan, from being already in more retailers at this point, what are the key trends from consumers and what retailers are requesting that you are meeting to increase the space for Idaho in its store?
Yeah, sure. And Justin, even though perhaps our products couldn't be more different, a lot of the principles that you touched on are very familiar. And they're principles that we talk about here at Idahoan with our packaged potato products. We've got a fantastic sales team. We've got a fantastic marketing team. I'd be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to them. I think a few of them are probably on this call as well. But our sales team in particular have built great relationships with our customer partners. And we do have widespread distribution, but we have opportunities for more distribution. And that may be, Justin, similar to what you said, taking a few core products and extending the availability within some of the major retailers. But even beyond that, food can be purchased in a lot of places and some unusual places even. We want to make sure that our product is really easy to buy. And so, of course, if you go into a traditional grocer, you would expect to find, and you would find Idahoan products and probably a pretty broad range of 20 to 30 varieties and flavors. But we can do better than that. We'll have to be selective, but we want to make sure our products are really easy to buy in a variety of stores, including alternative channels. We want to be really easy to buy. If you go to a website, go to a screen, go to a retailer's e-com site, and we want to show up on the first couple of rows so that you see us, you think about us. We want to show back up in the cart. Again, the principle of being really easy to buy. The retailers are going to press us this year. They're going to press for more units, for more tonnage, for themselves getting back to a growth agenda. I think they've seen some slippage with pricing that's been taken across the board, and they want to make sure that they can remain relevant and grow share and grow households within their marketplaces as well. And so I think that'll be a push from the retailer community. If you look at the center store categories, and I'll speak generally here, there's really some paddles to the chest that need to be put in place from an innovation standpoint. The investment and innovation in the perimeter of the store, and I suspect, Justin, in alcohol and beverage, has been quite good over the last decade. In center store, it's slipped, and I think that's been a large part of what's continued to enable our success is a continued investment in marketing and innovation, even though we sit in center store, and it works. It's pretty simple, more distribution, innovation that connects to more people and different day parts and more circumstances. And we've done a pretty good job over the years of resonating with that, 30 to 50-year-old kind of traditional family. And that's great. We want to continue to do that. But if there are ways that we can show up in a more modern way, in a more fun way, we'll do that. You've seen even in the last couple of years, we've done more with single serve convenient options to be used on the go. We've done a little bit with licensing and getting into flavors even that you wouldn't consider as part of a comfort food mashed potato. Of course, cheese and butter and sour cream work. Everybody does that. We've got you covered there. But hey, this new generation, up and coming consumers, they want things hot. They want things bold. And so we're looking for fun and exciting ways to show up on shelf with flavors that resonate to new and different audiences, to almost use innovation as a marketing lever in itself. And so you saw us partner with Hidden Valley Ranch with some products last year, and we've got some products rolling out this year, including one with Tapatio hot sauce brand, which a little different for us as a safe comfort food brand. I think that's what will be required to compete and win in the future. And we're going to continue to invest in this space. It's what we do. And we'll continue to work with our retailer partners to give consumers what they're looking for.
I love that. And I love the fact that you talked about the importance of innovation, because it is what drives growth in this industry. And you guys have continually delivered. So I love that you mentioned it. But you also mentioned trying to go after new cohorts and being able to attract them with what they might be looking for, like the hot flavors. So in what ways, though, did you tell them that you had that? How did you go after and target them and attract them in? Did you do anything different? Did you do the same tactics? If they're the same or different, would you share those stories with us, please?
Yeah, we try to reach consumers. Justin, you mentioned it and said it well. We try to reach them where they are. And, we invest in some traditional venues, including getting out into even some music festivals, right? It's pretty surprising when Idahoan food shows up with a free cup of mashed potatoes, maybe even topped with some chicken tenders or chili, and they can get a free sample. And that might be somebody's first exposure to the Idahoan brand, and maybe a younger consumer's first exposure, where they're surprised in a really good way. And they go back and learn more, and perhaps even stick with us for decades to come. But more and more, we try to be smart about our investments. And, the digital offerings have become so good, both in paid media and e-com. And we try to be really smart about who we reach, how we reach them, and the messages that we share. And so, for example, if we have a product that, may not be for everybody, I think even for those that choose not to buy it, it may open their eyes and surprise them as they walk down aisle 5, boring aisle 5 of the grocery store. But hey, wait a minute, Idahoan has something going on here, and I better pay attention. And maybe they pick up a couple more of our products than they would have otherwise. Or maybe they are attracted to that new product that they didn't think was for them, or maybe it's for them for the first time, and they develop that relationship with us. And so we don't take the relationships that we have with our consumers lightly. We're a valuable resource for dinner time and other occasions for a third of the households in America. But there's a gap between that 33% and the 90% that use and love potatoes. So we just need to find more ways, more circumstances to allow people to participate.
Maybe there's a beatbox Idahoan collab at the next music festival. We've got a cranberry flavor. I think the cranberry flavor would go well with some Idahoan potatoes.
Okay, so you guys, everybody heard that here. That could be the new collaboration, which I love that. So Justin, though, it was fascinating because you started talking about cohort groups like the traditional, like the millennial and the Gen X and just even Hispanics. Then you also transitioned to say, but we have an audience of music festival folks and some unique ways of trying to get in front of different consumer groups. It would be great to have you share with us what have been the most successful for you, why you think you have been able to attract those consumers by the things that you've done.
There really isn't a one thing you can point to. Like we've had TikTok posts go extremely viral. We've sold out of the major music festivals. We've done influencer campaigns. You just have to consistently show up in the channels that people are in an authentic way. People would have said like, oh, when Shark Tank aired, was that crazy? It was like, sure it was crazy, but we've had posts on social media that have led to more website traffic than Shark Tank did. And so it's a new world of marketing. And I think, the key is just continuing to be authentic, continuing to be on different platforms, being ahead of the curve of what's next. I mean, we were the very first, alcohol company on Instagram back in 2013 and 14 when everybody was on Facebook. And then we were one of the first to have a Snapchat QR code on our packaging when Snapchat was still kind of emerging. So you have to be listening and be ahead of the curve of what's coming next as a smaller brand. But there isn't like a single thing you can point to and say, wow, that was the one thing that really led to this tremendous consumer engagement. It's a series of constant work every day and being smart and lean and nimble and tracking it as best you can.
And I agree with you. I think it is the multi-prong approach, that integrated way of being able to go after them. So I loved your answer. You also shared with us when we talked before around some ambassador programs that you have. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, we want to empower our super fans to spread the love of beatbox around the country. And so we have, we have our Discord channel, which has nearly 7,000 people in at this point, which are super fans. We also have a Beats team. So these are folks that want to sign up to do store checks. They want to do tastings. They want to represent us at a festival or a local event. And we have an in-house field marketing team that is best in class, dozens of people, and each of them can kind of manage their own Beats teams and ambassadors. I think we're on like the 15th iteration of our brand ambassador program. It's just an ongoing thing, but there's lots of tools out there to empower folks. But at the end of the day, again, that's another community of super fans that you want to empower to spread the word. And what we said from day one is people don't want to hear how cool beatbox is from us, right? They don't want to hear from a brand how cool the brand is. They want to hear from their friends and people that they look up to and people that they're influenced by. And so the more that we can foster the communities that we reach, to post online, to tell a friend, to bring it to a party, to go to talk to a retailer, request another flavor, those things add up in a very big way over time. And it's a lot easier said than done. Everybody wants a brand ambassador program. Everybody wants to reach the next generation of customers, but you have to have the people internally that can manage it. You have to have the authenticity behind it, the infrastructure, and really the brand, which is, bigger than anything, that's taken a life of its own that people just want to feel connected to. And that comes from the messages we've been preaching for the last decade plus. So we definitely leverage the ambassador model, but I would consider it, just another part of the communities we serve.
Thanks.
Moving on to the question we had set up earlier about artificial intelligence, wondering if at this stage in your business, and maybe we start with Justin, what do you see? Is there a role of any type of automation, and where, if so, how are you managing now, kind of figuring out where to go with, say, flavors and get the kind of voice of consumer back into the product?
Yeah, I'll have to give a shout out to my co-founder, Brad, who's like the AI guru. He spends like an hour a day learning all the new things and telling us all the things we should be doing, and I'm the worst at it. But no, I mean, I think there's like the simple thing of like, leveraging for sending cleaner, concise emails for the team, like making their days easier for communication to B2B or whatever it is. Then there's, we just had a whole meeting on it yesterday. Like, I think we're about to put in like an AI task force for like 5 or 6 people across departmental that are super into it, that want to learn, that we can then build in, learning and development tools for our team to make their lives easier, because people that can leverage AI will be more efficient and will have a leg up. It's like the equivalent of not knowing Excel or Word or PowerPoint, 20, 30 years ago. Like, those were superpowers that you had if you knew how to leverage those. And so I think what's going to be very important to us as a next generation company, and then you have to come up with policies. Our general counsel is having a field day trying to create, like, we have the ability to take notes of every meeting, right? With an AI machine learning that then will spit out, and it's so efficient and amazing. If you miss the meeting, you have all of the highlights, who spoke, who said what, in a concise email. But at the same time, can you be recording every meeting? Does everybody have consent to that? Like, how do you manage that? What is your process for that? So there's a lot on both sides, regulatory and what we're putting in. I know there's a lot of companies starting, one of the holy grail that we're all searching for in CPG is like, what is happening in real time on the shelf, right? Because we get data, we have software to see all the orders that come in the back door. And if a retailer orders 5 cases one week and 5 the next week, well, we can assume they sold 5 cases, but when, what day, where, how was it priced, which flavors sold first, how many shoppers was it? We don't get that level of information. We get scan data through folks like you, but real-time info. So I know there are companies out there that are using machine learning and AI to, you film a set, it spits it into the algorithm and lets you know kind of like how things are developing. So I think it's going to get very interesting very quickly. And we're on top of it. I would say we'll be doing more with it, but it does come with challenges too.
good to have an expert in Brad. And Ryan, how about at Idahoan?
Yeah.
Or, sorry, Ryan.
Yeah. Like Justin said, it's here to stay. We're looking to see how it can be most applicable to our business and where we are in our journey. And of course, there's some easy use cases in marketing, whether it's developing content or copy, and even making sure that our digital is really nimble and efficient. But when we think about our business, like I said, we buy about 1 billion pounds of potatoes from local growers, and those grow in Mother Nature. And each potato may be a little different from the last in size, in shape, in water content and structure. So if there were a way that we could use AI to maybe source differently, maybe to pay differently, and maybe even I had mentioned how what we do at scale is wash, peel, boil, and mash potatoes, so consumers don't have to spend that 30 minutes doing it. We do that for you. If there would be a way that even our machinery could detect the nuances that Mother Nature has created in those potatoes and adjust and calibrate the equipment accordingly. We see a lot of value there in our business for that to become more efficient, to have more consistent quality over time. And it's something that we want to lean in on and adopt into our business. It's not something that we can just dismiss as something for the larger players or for somebody in a different industry. But no, there's use cases for Idaho, and especially when you consider our unique circumstances with Mother Nature.
Well, first of all, I think as we heard Tuesday and today, look, everyone's on this AI journey. It's going to be fascinating to watch how it unfolds as we go forward, because there's so many different, I mean, just listening to the two of you, there were new ways of using it that weren't even mentioned on Tuesday. So this is going to be a fun one for us to continue to monitor and see the impact that it has. Rounding out our last question, then we're going to move quickly into the Q&A. But Ryan, I'll start with you. What do you, as you look forward to the next year, think of it starting now in the next 12 months, what's the biggest opportunities for Idahoan?
Yeah, I'll probably sound like a broken record here. And there was actually a question in the chat around innovation and what % of our growth came from innovation in 2023, and it was nearly half. And when we re-embarked on this demand creation agenda, those were some muscles that hadn't been used in a while. And so there was some soreness across our organization, both in how we did it and some new people and process. And so, but we did it, and we want to continue with that double down mentality because there's no one else in our category that will invest. And so we're going to continue to invest in innovation. And you know, the cost pressures still haven't let up in full. And so we'll continue to look for ways through productivity and through automation to mitigate future cost increases that we can look to become more efficient. And we've got a really good value product, and it's priced well. The quality is truly second to none. And our units have continued to grow. And so we've got all the right pieces, the foundational pieces in place, where if we can now just get back to that demand creation agenda, doubling down on distinctive innovation, we feel like that's our best opportunity. And we also feel that innovation will also be an unlock for more distribution, whether it's those new products or some of our core products. That's the new news the retailers are hungry for, so that they can continue to build volume and attract households and market share and get people into their doors.
Fabulous. And, you know, I know, Justin, that you talked a lot throughout the conversation today around what you were doing from a distribution build. Like, you really have got some great plans there. But as I listen to Ryan and I see what you've done over the years, do you have a balance between the distribution and the innovation? Like, what are your opportunities for the rest of the next 12 months?
For me or for Ryan?
Yes. No, for you.
Okay, great. Yeah. I mean, for sure, our goal is there's 240,000 doors that can carry wine and malt off premise in the country. In the last 90 days, we had about 90,000 buy. So we got, 150,000 to go, right? And even within that 90,000, getting up to 6 or more SKUs in those other ones. So that's the opportunity, continuing more distribution. I think innovation for us, consumers want the latest, the greatest. They want the new flavor. And so we want to bring something new at least 1 to 2 times a year. So we've got a brand new flavor, cherry limeade, that you can only get in variety packs in a red, white, and blue package this summer with our top sellers, blue raspberry and fruit punch. We've got another new flavor coming in the fall, and we've innovated within our hard tea segment because we are making a bet within hard tea. Opposite of that, though, you don't want to just innovate to innovate, and you don't want to inundate your wholesalers with too many SKUs, confuse retailers. There is a limit to how much shelf space you can get, and you want to make sure that you have the highest velocity flavors on that shelf. So retailers want the new, you want to bring the new, you're evaluating your portfolio both nationally, regionally, by state. Do we have the right lineup? We're starting to get more into that of those kinds of things. But you got to bring something that wows the consumers and the retailers, I think at least once a year, twice a year, but not to the detriment of doing it to do it. And when we do it, we want to do it because we're bringing incremental shelf space and incremental consumers. So like with the hard tea line, we were finding people were buying Beatbox and then buying other tea products. Well, alcohol products. Well, why would we not want them to buy tea? And the tea consumer is a very different palate than maybe the Party Punch consumer. So those things we're thinking about is innovation is how do we drive incremental shelf space and incremental consumers into our brand? And you got to bring some fun stuff every year. Otherwise you'll lose some consumers.
Love that. You're absolutely right. So Kara, I know we have one question in the Q&A, and I also know that there were some comments from the Tuesday's webinar. We have 4 minutes. I'll let you manage that as best as we can.
Sure. So there's one question was around for Justin around the kind of disruptive packaging that you've used. It's somewhat unique in the space. Is that a challenge, or how is that? How does that affect your kind of sell-in and your decisions on the product?
Yeah, I think it's both. It was a huge challenge for years and years and years. We said, hey, we always said we were the leaders in the Party Punch category, but we were the only ones in the Party Punch category. So it was easy to say that. But now there's a lot more. I think Tetra Pak is an amazing package. It's resealable, which is very unique in beverage alcohol. If you crack a can, you're pretty much committed to finishing that can. If you have glass bottles, you can't go to the boat, to the park. And so being in a Tetra is awesome. It's the most eco-friendly packaging there is. It helped us become a B Corporation, which was a goal of ours. So we love the packaging format. Counter to that is that it's a totally new category in a segment that hadn't really been developed yet, and educating retailers and consumers that it can be perceived as premium. It can be, really, really fun. And I think we did to Tetra Pak what we attempted to do to box wine at the beginning, which was make it more fun. The traditional wine in boxes and Tetras is red, white. That was before even rosé was big. And so bringing more fun to that packaging has been awesome for us. But educating even our beer distribution network. So they're like, what the heck is a Party Punch? I don't 5 years ago when we started to go with them, then we were very confusing to them. So it's taken a lot of education, and we're now reaping the benefits of a lot of dialing in supply chain, a lot of consumer education and retailer education and wholesaler education, combined with the tailwinds that we saw a decade ago of consumers wanting more flavor, more fun, convenience, that has now emerged to really help us catapult us into another tier here. So we're super excited, and I think the best is yet to come. I think we're in the second or third inning of this thing.
I'm actually going to pull an audible and just say, first of all, Ryan and Justin, wow, this has been so fun. I could continue to have this conversation. So thank you both for being on with us. It's been really wonderful and fun to talk to both of you. For those of you that were on Tuesday and we didn't get to some of the questions, we'll just put those in our report. We will get and be able to kind of talk to some of the questions that you had in the report. So look for that probably around the second week of April. Thank you so much for joining us for this second edition of our 2023 Growth Leaders. I hope everyone has a great rest of the day. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.